Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining Change with Colton, episode 12. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Henry Sabin. He's a co founder of Convi, an AI platform to generate personalized videos at scale. Welcome to the show.
Hey Colton, good to be here, man.
Awesome. To get started, can you share your journey getting into entrepreneurship and how has it led you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the way that I actually got into you know, entrepreneurship, like formally, I guess you could say, was my best friend and I, we watched a YouTube series. Well, it was a television show, but we watched it on YouTube because we were in the UK and we couldn't find it on like any other streaming platform. But show is called Undercover Billionaire, and basically it is a show where they take super rich people and they give them, $100, an iPhone, and like a truck, and then they send them to a random part of America, and they have 90 days to build $1 million business.
Wow.
So super cool, yeah. And the amazing thing, and there's been a good number of people that have tried it, and some people are able to, some people aren't. So it's super interesting to see how different entrepreneurs tackle that problem, and basically the amount of value that one person can generate in just 90 days if they really are an expert in what they're doing and they're putting everything on the line, taking every risk. And so yeah, my friend and I, we saw this and we were like, this is awesome, this is so cool. And it was like during the summertime, and we kind of were like, you know, let's do this. Let's just take 90 days and we're just going to do this. So that was kind of how I started my first business, which was Thorough Media, a software development company. My friend could code, and I was like, I can figure out this marketing and sales thing. And
Yeah.
so for 90 days, that was all we did. We didn't like do no partying, no video games. It was just like, let's really take 90 days and put everything, like, act like this is all, be single minded about one thing. And well, you know, surprise, we didn't end up building $1 million business. And then I think I was 19. I turned 21 like during the challenge, but we did manage to like make money, like real money, to the
Right.
point where we were like, oh, this is actually a viable option for us, starting a business as opposed to getting a job. And realize as well that in that 90-day period, we learned much more about business, about value, about networking, working together, like focus. We just learned so much more than we felt we had learned in like the last 10 years or whatever in the education system, that we were like, okay, there's something here. And that was how we sort of made the switch, that that's what we wanted to do full time. I'm actually writing a little LinkedIn article about this now that will probably go up in the next week or so. So any viewers, if they're not following me on LinkedIn, you guys can go check that out there. And I kind of go more in depth about like how we did this challenge and how we got started with it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. It seems like an exciting show, and I'll have to check it out. And really, if you put your mind to something and give yourself a timeline, you'll be amazed how much you can accomplish. Can you share a few more lessons about that experience?
Yeah, 100%. So, you know, one of the great entrepreneurs, I think everybody knows, Steve Jobs, he used to talk a lot about how focus was saying no. And in meetings, one of the things he would ask people was like, what did you say no to this week? Right? Because like
Mhm.
that's how we really tell, who's focused. People think focus is about saying a big yes to one thing, but what saying a big yes to one thing actually looks like is saying a lot of little no's or a lot of big no's along the way. And so that was kind of something I realized, is like, oh man, you actually don't have that much time in a day. You only have so many hours. And once you start like really thinking about doing a big thing, it becomes really difficult. It becomes like instantly, I never really experienced this where I'm like, wow, I actually have to begin prioritizing because I don't have the time in the day. And so
Right.
learning to say no was one big lesson. And then another big lesson was about thinking, sort of learning how to think about problems differently. So like, if we had tried to, for example, make $1,000 in 90 days, we probably would have been able to do that. Right. We would have accomplished that, right? The two of us both working for that time. Like, if we could have just worked at a job, there's lots of ways to do that. But when you think about like $1 million, you need to think differently about the problem. All the existing frameworks you have, they begin to break down. So it's like, oh, I need to actually begin thinking about things in a different way. The previous model no longer works. It forces you in another way. So in a sense, having a huge goal, like I know one of the things, like Grant Cardone's one of the billionaires who's done the challenge, and he's always talking about like, are you familiar with him and his
Yeah.
writings and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he talks about
10x.
like 10x, 10x, yeah. And it's funny. So in the second season of the show, one of the things he does is he's shooting to make 10 million. So he's like just starting off with like, oh, I'm going to make a $10 million business in 90 days. And I just thought that was so funny. And it was kind of similar to what we were doing. Where like, okay, cool. We've like never made any money before. Let's try to make $1 million right away. I don't necessarily recommend that for people because it's like, okay, this is an easy way to get discouraged. And also it's not like a realistic goal, but in some sense, the act of thinking that way got us thinking in a different way. And it also put us in rooms with people that thought differently than us. We started going to networking events, meeting other entrepreneurs, and basically saying, this is what we're trying to do. And so, yeah, I would say if you can, one of the great business questions that Alex Hormozy talks about is like, if you can think if my product had to cost 10 times more, what would I have to do to justify that cost, right?
Yeah.
And then the other question is, if I had to deliver my same product for 10 times less, how could I operationally do that, right? And so then you have like those two opposing pieces. And then for us, we had like a similar question where it was like, what if we had to achieve, 1,000 times more? What would that look like? What would we have to do? So I would say that those are kind of the two of the big ones, was like learning to think on a different level, and then learning to kind of deal with whatever I said the first one was. I can't remember now, but dealing with constraints.
Very cool. I think when you just like expand your mindset, that's where the real growth happens. To transition a little bit, uh, I saw a post about your perspective on passion. That's something you said that it's something you can develop over time and choose rather than finding you. How did you apply this mindset to cultivate your passion for Convi and its AI technology?
Yeah, so passion is one of those things that people talk about, like finding your passion, and people get really freaked out about it. And oftentimes there's like this balance between like, I have my work and I have my passion, and like I don't want to make my work my passion because then I won't be passionate about it anymore. Or like also like people don't want to be people get in their heads about it. And at least for me, I take issue with the mindset of finding your thing. Like you can try a bunch of things, but ultimately I really believe that almost anyone can become passionate about anything if they really are. Like you got to become a nerd about it, studying it. But like ultimately all humans, we follow that same habit loop. You do an action, you get a reward, and then like you do that enough times, then like you get really good at it. Like for me, when I was younger, I did a lot of public speaking, and as a result I started liking public speaking because I would go, I would do it, people clap, I'll be like, yeah, that felt good. And that's the number one fear in America, is public speaking.
Right.
Right. And I also was not a person that was like, yeah, I want to go do this. When I first started, I started at a young age. I went to a school where there was like a lot of public speaking assignments. And so like, it was just something I did enough times that I got those reps. I built that habit, built that affinity for that thing. And so if, I can have a thing that I'm passionate about that is literally most people's number one fear, then like, I really believe that most people can become passionate about anything if they just give it enough time, repetitions, and they're put in the right environment to encourage that. And so that's really empowering because it means that if you're struggling to find a passion, you don't always need to find it by trying a lot of things, but maybe you can just choose the thing that you would like to be passionate about, and then you can put yourself in the environment where that's going to come about. Like if you want to get fit or get in shape, like going to a gym or finding some friends that are already into it, then like that begins to rub off on you. That passion rubs off on you, and that environment where you go with them. Now you're hanging out with your friends, you're listening to music, whatever else happens, and you can build that passion. So for Convi, when we got into this business, immediately the first thing that like me and my co-founder are doing is like, okay, let's be nerds about this. You know what I mean, Colton? Like, let's
Yeah.
get in there and like
Dive
let's
deep.
find all the little metrics. Exactly, all the little analytics. Like now, like we see certain campaigns. Like we just had a client like got a huge results on like click-through rate. We're like, dude, look at this click-through rate. This is crazy. Like this is awesome. And it's like, a few years ago, if you're like, hey man, check out the click-through rate on this email campaign, I'll be like, I don't now I don't not know what this is. Like I don't care. Like I'm not passionate about it. So oftentimes just comes down to getting into the nitty-gritty, reading up on it, like putting it in that time, and then finding what's interesting about it to you. Because anything, if you explore it enough, you'll find a piece interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely agree with that. A passion of mine that I recently discovered. I mean, everything nowadays is about AI and like how it's going to shape the future. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can about that.
100%. That's what it's all about. And it's also like AI is such a broad topic that like there definitely will be things in there that appeal to you, that stick out to you just naturally with spending time in it. Like I believe anyone can really dig in and find the piece of what they like, as long as that they have that environment, and they're willing to put in the work and time to find those pieces that appeal to them.
For sure. So yeah, with entrepreneurship, there comes times where you have to overcome challenges or overcome failures. Can you share a few lessons you've learned while building Convi?
Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game right there, is like just overcoming challenges. In terms of like specific lessons, I found that in many businesses, you learn the same things. You learn the same lessons over and over again. One saying I really like is, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. Like, if we could just act on all of the like advice we already had, then like we would all have everything we wanted. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so oftentimes, right, like we already know all the secrets. Like, people know to work hard, people know to stay consistent. Like, it's not for lack of knowing, but we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. We need to oftentimes relearning, and when we relearn it deeper. And so I would say many of the lessons we've learned, like in Convi, like from adversity, we face, it's like it's the same things. It's like, how can we make the product better? Like in the past, we had overbuilt features, built things that we were like, these are really cool, people are going to really like these, but then we forget it's not about us. It's about them. It's about the customer. It's about the things that they need to be most helpful, most useful. And that's a mistake we made in previous businesses too. Like, oh, how can we add stuff to make this like super cool? I used to run a heating system installation business, and we built so much software and interesting stuff for it, and like all these things. And the reality is, like, most people just want to get the heating system in their home as fast as possible. Because like when they're buying one, it's because something's broken or because someone's coming to visit and like their thing doesn't work as well. Like, the thing they really cared about was like speed and cost. Like, that was the big things that the customers cared about. But then we like became heating installation nerds. So we're like, oh yeah, this is such cool technology. Oh, this is going to be so much more heating efficient. This is going to have all these things that, like, we care about, but like it's about the customer. So I would say that's one of like those lessons we keep relearning. Obviously in terms of like actual hardship with Convi, we were able to avoid a lot of the most painful pieces because we had just done this. We had just done this before. And like, I think entrepreneurship is in a sense cyclical, in that you sometimes you just keep relearning the same lessons, but at a higher level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any tips for people who are just getting into entrepreneurship to remain persistent when they are facing rejection?
Yeah. So I would say, all the things everybody else has said, right? Because like I can say like don't give up and like work hard, but like everybody says that and everybody knows that. I would say these are a piece of advice that I would have that are pretty unique. One is, don't innovate for your first business. Like, don't try to do something new. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, because the reality is it's difficult enough to just do a business that's tried and true, that has existed for a long time.
Mm.
If you want to start, for example, like a marketing agency, or like you want to sell insurance, or you want to create a freaking drive-through burger place, like all those businesses, like there's thousands of them and they all make money and we know how to run them. Like, there are people that know how to do it. And
Right.
so the only problem left is execution, right? You have executional risk. Like, will I be able to do this?
Mm.
And that's really difficult. If you want to add on top of that innovational risk, which is like, there might not be a business here, that makes it even more difficult. So I would say, like, play on easy mode your first time. Do a business that already exists. Like Daniel and I, like during our 90-day challenge, like we were able to make like over 10K doing software development. And there's lots of software development companies that exist. So we could
Right.
literally just like look up people that own software companies on LinkedIn and like ping them and be like, hey, can we talk to you about like how you guys do this? Like how you manage this? And they'll be like, yeah, do these
Yeah.
things. Like, we found a local virtual reality development studio, and we reached out to them and we're like, hey, we're 19 and 20, we're trying to start this business, like, can we just talk to you about like your methods and like process, like as a development agency? And they were more than happy to have us come in and like show us around and let us wear the Oculus and whatnot and answer our questions. And just having something like that is so much better than you're like, oh, we're going to invent, you know Uber for dog walking or something, like that might be $1 billion thing but also like might totally fail. So for the first one, I would say try to just do something that's tried and true. And then also, if you can have a buddy with you, that makes a big difference too, because it's going to be tough. There's a reason why, like, they talk about co-founders for a lot of tech startups. It's like,
Hmm.
if you can have someone that's in it with you, ideally someone with different skills than you, right? Because if you both have the same skills, you're just both going to do the same thing, and then like
Right.
one of you shouldn't be there. But like, if you can do something that has been done before with another smart, hardworking person with different skills, then you're in a good spot to make some money.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one takeaway from that is like finding that co-founder. How do you find yours?
Yeah, so for my co-founder, Daniel, we were introduced by a mutual friend who was like, "Hey, you guys need to meet because you're both like know what's going on." And yeah, that was pretty much it. So I didn't really need to like search per se. I
Yeah.
would say though there's a couple things you can do, which is like just being a social person, broadcasting that you want to do something, as well as just like being open to working with people that you might not necessarily think like could be a good fit, because the reality is that a lot of times what makes a good match between co-founders is different personalities. Like people want to work with someone that's like them, but a lot of times you might need someone to balance you out, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, getting into the community, meeting lots of people, and there's nothing wrong with starting on your own and then finding someone else to join you later in the process when you need that skill set. Like if you have that sales and marketing skill set, there's nothing wrong with starting to market, build some hype, and then finding a person that can help you deliver or sell the service later on.
Great. Yeah, and also another takeaway I got is just asking for help, like when you're getting started. I mean, just reaching out on LinkedIn, you would be surprised how many people are willing to help you out.
100%, Colt. Like that is probably the single most like highest ROI thing you can do if you're just getting started out, is like ask for help, because
Hmm.
people are happy to help you. They would love to help you, and you can get access to people you wouldn't ever imagine you'd be able to get access
Exactly.
to. I mean, Daniel and I were able to literally, through a simple cold email or a message, get in touch with literal billionaires, some of the most prestigious people in the world that like we would never have thought would talk to us, and they'd be like, yeah, like let's hop on a Zoom call, like let's talk about this. And you're like, oh my gosh, like so. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
like just ask and be and ye shall receive, right? Like as the saying goes. Like sometimes you never know.
yeah, it's just not being afraid to send that message. And I mean, what's the worst that could happen? They don't reply, and then you move on to the next person.
100%. And even more so, I would say like you can be afraid to do it and still do it. Like that's one of the awesome things is like I always try to tell myself like I'm afraid of doing this, I'll just do it anyways.
Hmm.
Like like you can do you like one of the other like big lessons we learned in that 9 day period is like we were scared to do everything. We were terrified. We physically went into businesses and tried to like pitch them in their freaking reception. We were like shaking. I remember one time we were like telling this couple, we're like, yeah, like we're really good at software. I'm like shaking, no idea what to do, like sweating, and we were terrified, but we still did it. You can be terrified and do something. Like people think like, well, I don't want to do this because I'm scared. It's like, well, you know, it's okay to be scared. You don't need to wait till you're not scared. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like that point will rarely be there where you're not scared about anything and you just have to remain persistent and step out of your comfort zone.
And the biggest opportunities will oftentimes be the ones you're most afraid of.
Hmm. Definitely. So, to jump back into I saw that you recently joined C2PA to
Yep.
prevent AI deepfake fraud. Can you explain what deepfake fraud is for those who don't know? And then what are you doing to guide your approach with that?
Yeah, 100%. So the C2PA is an organization, the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, and basically it has a lot of purposes, but the main purpose is to prevent the misuse of generative AI technologies. For example, Convi, we generate personalized videos at scale. So we take a video of me saying, "Hey Henry," we plug it in, we can turn it into "Hey Colton," "Hey whoever." And that's really awesome for marketing purposes because we can send everyone personalized videos, and it's a huge jump in response rate. It's like great ROI. The only problem is now you've invented a technology that makes videos of people saying things that they didn't say, right?
Mm.
And you can make those by the thousand. So basically, the C2PA just exists to ensure that we have ways of knowing which media is authentic or which is created by artificial intelligence, and then also that the tools that are being built by the organizations within it are safe. And so for us, what that means is basically ensuring that the people who we're creating virtual clones of, we have their consent to do that, right? So we need to record a vocal sample for people, and part of that vocal sample is we record them basically reading through, understanding, okay, this is what's going to happen with my voice. These are things that are possible to be done, and then the other piece on top of that is then working closely with that person, ensuring that they're the ones who are creating the clones of themselves and are consenting to that, or that if they're going to give another person consent to create that, that like we understand where the line is drawn, right? So, I can't just go and create a video of someone saying something that they don't want there to be media of it being said. Obviously, the biggest like use case that people are afraid of is creating videos of politicians, creating videos of celebrities, saying or doing things that are criminal or are not against their message. And so that's basically what we try to prevent.
Yeah, I think that's very important with the way the industry's going, and it's very cool that you are committed to preventing that.
Yeah, 100%. We see it as more responsibility of companies that are going to be doing generative AI, particularly video, because video is becoming increasingly popular. 82% of all traffic on the internet is video. So video is taking over, and right now, most of those videos are made by humans, but pretty soon, in our lifetime for sure, a lot of those videos are going to be not made by humans, and it's important that that transition is handled properly.
What other innovations in the space are you excited about?
Yeah, so for AI video, there's a lot of stuff that I'm excited about. I personally believe that most video is going to end up being AI generated at some point. And also, I think we're going to begin to see the transition of a lot of media that previously was text or images into video. If you look at like just the progression of the internet, like in the early days of the internet, you had a lot of forums, chat rooms, you had Reddit and Twitter. And then, we moved to the more modern age of a lot of images, like Instagram, which like image based. Facebook had, images and video. And now we're moving towards like pure video platforms like TikTok and YouTube that are becoming ever more popular. And then every single platform is basically becoming TikTok, right? Even LinkedIn adding shorts, and LinkedIn was sort of like the last bastion of like a platform like didn't have short form videos on it. And so I think we're going to see more and more things that would have been text becoming video, whether that's AI generated or just people literally recording them. Like, whereas before you would read a blog article, now we're seeing lots of generative AI companies come out where they can clone the voice of the author, and then you can click a button and now you can hear that article as a podcast.
Yeah.
Right. So we went from text to audio, and pretty soon we're going to be able to see that go from text to audio to then video, where you can watch a generated version of that podcast, or images generated to go along with it. So I think we'll just start seeing this waterfall of more and more video content, as well as
Yeah.
content made for the individual. Right. When you open TikTok and scrolling, it's going to be like, hey Colton, like I want to talk to you about like XYZ, like your specific pain points, specific problems in your life. It's just the data aggregation plus the ability to personalize at scale. We're going to create a really personalized internet. Already people, like when I go on my feed, you go on your feed, like they're totally different, but pretty soon they're going to become more and more different, more and more individualized. And I think in some ways that can be, there's pros and cons to that, but obviously one of the big pros is that like everyone can get an internet that's made just for them and feels like home to them.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how the next few years play out.
100%.
So, what's one piece of advice you wish you had received when you started your entrepreneurial journey, and how could it have changed your approach?
So a couple things. One is probably patience is a big part of the entrepreneurial process. When you first start out, you want everything yesterday. And then over the years, I learned to recognize that, like, okay, I'm not saying like you should be lazy or not try to make things happen quickly, but to a certain degree, being okay with giving things time and not pivoting. Like if you want to do, for example, like SEO, like that's going to take you like 6 months to start seeing the results from that. And at least for me, when I started out, like 6 months, I was like, man, like
That's a lifetime.
six, yeah, like I don't have 6 months. Like I got bills to pay. I got stuff I want to do. You're telling me I got 180 days. No way. So one piece of advice I wish I had when I started out was like, be patient, but also to a degree, this kind of ties in with that. Advice is like something you tell someone, but kind of one of the big things I've learned throughout my journey is that the most valuable things you can't really be taught. You have to live them. In the same sense that like if I can get a bunch of people in a classroom and just tell them something, the thing I'm telling them is usually not that valuable, because if I can tell them, then I can tell anyone, and then it's like not that valuable. But like living through something, living through an experience, having gone through running a market campaign, having gone through a sale, would you trust the person who's read 100 books on golf or the person who's played 100 games? The games every single time. And it's the
Right.
same thing in business. So I would say another piece of advice would be don't worry too much about advice and just start doing. Because once you start doing things, the action will produce information.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm going through that right now. I'm building a community for early stage founders to connect with mentors
Hmm.
and investors, and just trying to dissect like the different pain points in the community and seeing how it could really add value is a lot more useful than just like brainstorming myself and trying to figure it out. You actually have to talk to the people and go through it.
100%. Because the thing you have in your mind and the thing that people want is always a totally different thing. And even if they're 99% the same, that 1% might be the difference between creating something people want and something people don't. So yeah, like it's always about the customer at the end of the day.
For sure. So, moving on to the last segment of the show, I call it Idea Factory. My audience is primarily founders, and I want to provide them with some business ideas that they could create. Can you offer actionable business ideas for an aspiring founder to explore and potentially develop?
I don't know that I can give super specific ideas because, I'm not that smart. Like, and a
Don't put
lot of the
yourself
ideas that
down.
I'm going to say will probably not be good. I don't mean that in the sense that, like, I'm dumb, but I just mean the sense that, like, it's really hard to know what a good idea is. So I actually had a buddy of mine who has built several super successful software companies and made a lot of money. And he sold his last one for a big chunk of change, and then he's like, okay, it's time to start the next one. So what he did was he had 4 ideas, and he was like, I think each of these is going to be huge. So he made
Right.
a landing page for each one, and then he ran some ads to each one. But he didn't build the software; he just made a landing page and ran ads just to test what the output would be. And like 3 of the ideas, like nobody cared about. Like no one wanted it at all. And one of them was a hit. So it's like, okay, even someone who's like done it multiple times and sold, like gone through the entire process, even that person still, when they try to come up with an idea, like is still wrong most of the time. So that's what I mean when I said I'm not that smart. I'll say some ideas, things I find interesting, but like I don't want to give any promises that they'll be good because the reality is like the market is one thing and then my brain's another. But things I like are future of work. There's a lot of cool companies that are looking to create gamification in work from home. So if you're going to be working in Slack all day and Zoom all day, there's ways that we can make that more interesting and make that more fun. And I would also say the other big one is telehealth. A lot of people are beginning to realize that going into the doctor is not always necessary, especially for a lot of things that can be a phone call or can be a video call. It's a
Right.
lot more efficient. A lot more people are able to see them. We have telehealth companies that use Convi and get incredible results from it because they're able to add that personalization now to a experience that people want a personal experience with, but they also want the speed and convenience of being online. So I would also say anything in the telehealth space is a really good one that's going to be growing massively over the coming years.
I definitely agree with that. Looking for that personal experience when you're dealing with something like that is pretty important, and I think that aligns with a lot of the patients.
Yeah, we have a case study that went up recently on our site. If anyone watching wants to check it out, where we worked with a telehealth company and were able to drive a lot of extra revenue.
Great. And then, were there any key mentors or sources of inspiration that played a crucial role in shaping your mindset as a founder or in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So like in terms of like people that like I knew, Mark Glasgow was a really great mentor to me. He's the founder of the Edinburgh Boiler Company, which is a heating system installation company. He was one of our clients when we ran Thurlstan Media, and he kind of became a business mentor to me and really took me under his wing and taught me a lot of really valuable business lessons early on. In terms of like people that were really helpful, like online, like people that the people watching can go learn from, because I don't think every viewer can go come to Scotland and find Mark. But Alex Hormozzi's content is super invaluable. He does a really great job of packing a lot of value into not a lot of time, so it's super efficient for our watch. I've a lot of value in joining groups, like paid groups, as well as, of course, Undercover Billionaire, the show. That one gives you, it's more of a show than tell, which is what I really like about it. Like you can just see a person doing it rather than reading, like hearing
about it.
someone talk. This is how I close a deal. You just see them go and close a deal. So that's extremely valuable. Content that documents rather than talks about it is always really awesome for me, and that's kind of what I try to do on my LinkedIn.
Yeah, I definitely see some very valuable posts, and I'm looking forward to seeing more content of yours on LinkedIn and the other platforms as
You
well.
too, Colton.
Thank you. Do you have any last minute thoughts, and where can people find you at, and how can people be useful to you?
If people want to find me, they can find me on LinkedIn at Henry Sabin. And they can also find me on LinkedIn, and more LinkedIn. It's all LinkedIn. Like that's like the platform that I'm on. You can find me on Twitter at _Sabinator, but really LinkedIn is like where I'm most active. If you want to get in touch with me, like that's the one that I check every day. If you want to be helpful to me, then I would just say follow my stuff, turn on notifications on my LinkedIn account so you can see when I post new things, and comment, engage with the material, because that really is, at least for me, how I learn is by commenting on other people's things, engaging with it, and then hearing feedback. Like that's one of the best ways to learn. Like a lot of people will go and they'll watch something and they'll have an idea and then they'll just walk away from it. If you can
Mm,
engage, then that's one of the best ways to learn quickly. And also for me, like that helps me know what people are resonating with so I can make stuff better. So like if there could be an ask in the audience, it would be, if you see something that you like or something that you don't, say something. Don't give me hate though. I don't want that virtual hate.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I saw a stat before that only like 1% of people actually post on LinkedIn. And I
Yep.
think more people should engage and with that community because it gives you endless opportunity.
And one thing I'll also say to anyone scared of posting on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is far and away the most positive platform I've ever seen. If you go on Instagram or YouTube or Twitter or sorry, X or any of those other platforms, you find so much negativity. People will insult you. Not necessarily, but on LinkedIn, you never see that. I don't think I've ever seen someone on LinkedIn just straight up insult someone or say something super rude. Like it's almost always very positive, and like if people don't have anything nice to say, they tend not to say it on LinkedIn. And when you're just starting out in the social media game, that's super positive. And like how I was saying in the beginning, like you can become passionate about anything. Like if you want to become passionate about social media and become passionate about creating content, LinkedIn's a great place to start because you're only going to get positive feedback, right?
Right.
Like you're only gonna get good stuff. You're not going to receive any rudeness on there. So yeah.
Thanks for that. So, thanks again for joining Change with Colton, episode 12. Remember to be grateful and stay blessed.